Okay. When you're ready, Dr. Sullivan.
Oh, I'm not seeing Antonio.
Okay, just now.
I don't know if they're in the breakout.
Okay, just now. Hold on.
Good evening, everybody. We're just waiting on one speaker who's having a challenge logging in, and then we will get started. All right.
On mute, Dr. Sutherland.
That was the speaker. She's still having challenges getting in, but we're going to start. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I hope you guys are okay. This is another session of Real Talk Family Life, building shatterproof families one brick at a time. We're always excited to have you guys joining us, and we look forward to another engaging program produced by our host ministry out of Trinidad and Tobago, Faith Tabernacle. So welcome each participant. We acknowledge every minister joining us today. We encourage participation and use emojis, comment or question in the chat, and let's have some fun discussing different aspects of family life that affects us. Now, tonight is about physical health, and we're not going to ask you to get up and stretch or run around the room, at least not yet. But this is another topic that we thought was important to address. And so Physical health. According to the World Health Organization, our health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And so last 2 weeks, we had an exciting time speaking about mental health. And so we found that it was only fitting to discuss physical health this week. And so just a point to note, this definition of health has not changed since 1948. The wellnessschoolproject.com says that physical health represents one dimension of total well-being. The term refers to your state of your physical body and how well that is actually operating. And so to help us discuss physical health and demystify some taboos surrounding physical health and movement, we have tonight Antonio Cheltenham, Amanda Blackman, and Dr. Natalie Roberts. We also have an additional panelist, Reverend Clarine Cave, who's going to weigh in at any point in time to clarify certain issues. So I'm going to give the panelists about 30 seconds to introduce themselves. It's a new group of individuals, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from them tonight. I know Antonio loves to say the men go first, but tonight, Antonio, we're going to honor you and ask you to just introduce yourself first. Unmute your mic.
Oh yes, still new to this. Good night, everyone. Name is Antonio Cheltenham, as Dr. Sutherland would have said. I am a fitness trainer, but I go more by a strength and conditioning coach. I say this because I more deal with persons who are more at the end of rehabilitation or need some type of rehabilitation. So you will come to me after you see the physiotherapist, and I will help you to regain your strength and your conditioning. I do prefer this line of work because physical health nowadays has become a fad, and I don't want to get caught up in that fad. I want persons to really concentrate on health and a wholesome idea of health. Okay. I would like to also add that I did my degree in Venezuela, which was 5 years. So I have a bachelor's in physical health and activity. So if there's anyone on here who speaks a little bit of Spanish or who speaks Spanish and you want to ask a question in Spanish, I would direct you to Sasha because she speaks Spanish also. All righty. So let's move on to the other speaker. Hi, Natalie. Dr. Roberts, you're in.
Yes, so we'll go to Nurse Blackman so that Dr. Roberts could get situated. Unmute your mic.
All of us are having the same problem.
Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Amanda Blackman. I am a dental nurse for the last 45 years. Actually, on the 3rd of this month, we celebrated our 45th anniversary since the introduction of dental nursing. My job is to see about children under the age of 12 by fillings, extractions, cleanings, dental health education in schools, clinics, wherever there's a gathering. I took care of the dental health of the children of the nation. I worked at Maraval, all the health centers in St. George West. And we were trained right here. Our lecturers came, it was the initial, because I was in the first batch, our lecturers came from England, from America, and it was tough, but we got through. Okay.
Thank you. And Dr. Roberts, welcome.
Hi. Well, I came in a little late, so I'm not sure what's happening right now, but it seems like introductions. Is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So I'm Dr. Natalie Roberts. I've been a family physician for the last 21 years. My specialty is in sports and exercise medicine with a specific interest in nutrition. I am a lecturer at UWI, both in the Faculty of Medicine and Faculty of Sport. And I tend to run wellness programs as well as doing general practitioner type things in my practice. I'm particularly interested in the management of NCDs, or your non-communicable diseases, and the use of physical activity, specifically exercise, in the control of any of those NCDs like your hypertension and diabetes. And that's pretty much me.
Great. Is Reverend Cave on?
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry that you can't see me for the time being. I'm just going to wing as things go along. I am not necessarily part of the panel, the immediate panel tonight, but health and wellness is a baby of mine because I was a professional athlete for a number of years. And as someone who still is an avid, I don't want to say athlete, but still take that along with you because your muscles never forget, right? So I'm still very active and so forth. And I have shifted more from the wanting to, let me not get ahead of myself. Let me just hear how the discussion is going to go, and I will then chime in as we go along. Thanks, Sasha, for inviting me.
Fantastic. Okay. So when you meet somebody, one of the first things you see is somebody's face, right? And one of the first things you notice is their smile. So Nurse Blackman, I want to come to you. We talk about physical health, but a lot of us oftentimes don't think about dental health being instrumental or part of that physical well-being until, of course, there's an issue with our teeth and we can't do that broad smile anymore because maybe there's a chip or it's looking a bit yellow, etc. So I want to invite you to just make a brief presentation. Talk to us about dental health. Why is it important and how does it contribute to physical health?
Okay, well, I'll start. We have often heard that we should brush our teeth after every meal, but I know that this is not always possible. So what I advise is that you brush your teeth every morning and especially every night. Why especially at night? Because during the day, your salivary glands secrete saliva, which helps to wash over your teeth. But at night, when you go to sleep, those salivary glands don't secrete as much. Have you ever noticed when you get up in the morning, your mouth have that dry, yucky feeling? And that's because you don't have as much saliva washing over your teeth. Therefore, it's very important that you brush at night, and especially if you have children and babies who are still taking bottle, that you don't let them sleep with the food and the stuff and the milk on their teeth, which would cause cavities. When we brush our teeth, we use toothpaste and a toothbrush. The type of toothbrush you use is important. Everyone should use a soft or medium. Never ever use a hard or extra hard toothbrush because the hard bristles scratch your teeth and damage your gums. Those of you who are presently using a hard toothbrush, have you ever noticed that after brushing your teeth, you see streaks of blood? But if you continue to use this, after a while, you would notice that the gum around your teeth would recede and eventually the root of your teeth will become exposed. When this happens, your teeth then become very sensitive to hot and cold. So one day you might be drinking a cup of tea or a glass of juice and you suddenly feel pain. You look in the mirror and you look at your teeth and you're not seeing any cavities. So you wonder, why am I getting pain? This is because the root is never supposed to be exposed. It's always supposed to be covered by the gum. At one school I went to, the teacher told me she believed in a hard toothbrush was the best thing to do, give you a better clean. So she used a hard toothbrush all her life. And the same thing happened, her gum line has receded. And she says now her teeth are so sensitive that even breeze can't pass on it. When we buy toothpaste, buy a toothpaste that has fluoride because the fluoride helps to harden the enamel of the teeth. We also use dental floss to clean those hard to reach areas. When using dental floss, there's an important word that you need to remember, and that word is gentle. Never take the floss and ram it down between your gums, with your teeth to hit your gums, because that will cut your gums and you will end up getting gum infections. I do not advise flossing for children under the age of 7, as they might not have the proper dexterity. If, however, it has to be done, it should be done under the supervision of an adult. Also, with young children, an adult should brush their teeth. Don't leave it up to an older brother or sister to do it. During pregnancy, it is important that a mother has a balanced diet that includes sufficient calcium, because the baby teeth start forming from as early as the 6th week of pregnancy. When babies are around 6 months old, the first teeth begin to erupt, usually at the bottom of the jaw here. And that tooth didn't form last night and come up this morning. It started from as early as the mom's pregnancy. It is important to take care of both the baby teeth and the permanent teeth. And a lot of people say, well, the baby teeth are going to fall out, so you don't really need to pay too much attention to it. The baby teeth are very important because what they do is they keep the space for the permanent teeth. When a child loses his baby teeth too early, what happens is those on the side drift into the space, and then when the larger permanent tooth is ready to come up, the space then is too small and it comes out like what we call a rider. And that means overcrowding. Another reason for overcrowding is hereditary. Sometimes it's in the family, mommy or daddy or granny or somebody has overcrowding in the family and the teeth. And the third reason is we are all a product of mommy and daddy. So what happens sometimes is that the child might take mommy's small jaw, but daddy's big teeth. So it comes out twisted, and then you need to look for orthodontics to straighten it, which is very expensive. When giving snacks to children, encourage them to eat fruits instead of sweets or salty snacks. The sweet would only cause cavities, and the salty snack would cause hypertension at an early age. But I'm retired now, but when I was working in the health center, what we noticed is that more young people were coming to the clinic with hypertension. It used to be only an old people thing, but we noticed a lot of younger people were coming. And it is believed that because we give them so much corn curls and pretzel and all these salty things, that maybe that could be the cause. For children who are still being bottle fed, as I said, never allow the baby to sleep with the milk on the teeth. Milk, it doesn't mean that you have to put sugar in the milk, but milk itself has its own sugar, and that can cause cavities. So please make sure. I know it's difficult. I used to tell mothers, I know after baby going to sleep, the last thing in the world you want to do is to disturb baby to brush teeth. But because of I just explained how important it is to keep those baby teeth, it's worth the while to gently clean the teeth off, clean the milk off. You should have a dental checkup at least once a year. Ideally, it should be every 6 months, but I know that is costly and it's not always possible. So at least once a year, go and have your teeth examined, get them cleaned. If you have cavities, get them filled. I know many people disregard their oral health, but it has been discovered that bacteria from rotten teeth, if it travels to your heart, can cause a heart attack. Also, the attitude of many people is if a tooth is decayed and hurting, then you just go to the dentist and have it extracted. But tell me, if your little finger was hurting, would you go to the doctor and say, cut it off? Well, likewise, it's important that you keep your permanent teeth. When you lose your teeth, if you lose a bottom tooth, those on the side will drift into the space, and the opposite upper tooth will start drifting down, because teeth are supposed to, when you close your teeth, they bounce against each other. Likewise, if you lose an upper tooth, again, those on the side will drift, and then the bottom partner that is supposed to bounce on him is going to start drifting up. And when all this sort of shifting occurs, eventually you're going to end up with pains in your jaws. There's a joint there called, a big word called temporomandibular joint. It really means jawbone here. And because the teeth are missing and it's shifted, when you chew, you are putting stress on parts that are not supposed to get that stress. If you wear dentures, when you brush your teeth, remove your denture, clean your denture, clean your teeth, and then put it back on. And the word is denture, and it's not a plate. You cannot get a saucer to fit in your mouth, much less for a plate. So always remove the denture when you're cleaning your teeth. And also at night, you should remove the denture. Clean your teeth, clean the denture, and try to avoid sleeping with the denture on. These dentures usually have tight clamps which have to hold on around the tooth. By removing it at night, you are giving the blood vessels and tissues in your mouth a chance to rejuvenate for tomorrow's job of holding this tight thing up. And by now, your spouse would know you wear false teeth. So when you say good morning, darling, in the morning, he's not going to get a heart attack. Right? And lastly, I'm going to give you a demonstration. When I go to the schools, I show them how to brush your teeth. I know we all know how to brush our teeth, but just a quick demonstration. My toothbrush, of course, would be a soft toothbrush. When you brush your teeth, you start on one side and you work your way around to the other side. You don't start here, jump here, come back here. If you do that, you're going to miss areas. It's a methodical process. You start on one side, you brush your upper teeth down and your lower teeth up. You can go in circles right around until you reach the other side. Open wide. Take the toothbrush, put it on the side of your teeth next to the roof of your mouth. You come down behind your upper front teeth straight out and the other side down. Down below, you put the toothbrush on the side of your teeth next to your tongue. You come up behind your lower front teeth, the other side up. The only time you go across your teeth are on the flat surfaces that you chew on. And this is when you go in and out, in and out. If you have a child around 6 years of age, make sure the toothbrush goes right up to the back. Because around 6 years, they get the first permanent molar in the back there. A baby tooth does not fall out for that one to come in. So between around 6, 7 years, it comes out. So make sure when they're brushing, the toothbrush goes right up to the back. And finally, you stick out your tongue. Well, I don't have a tongue on this. You stick out your tongue and you clean your tongue. And that's, thank you.
Thank you.
So over to you.
If you have a question or comment, please drop it in the chat. I have one question before we move forward, or before we move on to the other panelists. Nurse Blackmon, how do you brush your lips and the inside of your gums?
Yes, when you're brushing, it's good if you can get the toothbrush right down to your gum line. And so by going like this, and you're massaging your gum. Remember, it's a soft toothbrush. So you go right down to the gum, go up to the gum on the top. And you keep going in this circular motion right around. Gum to gum.
Great. Okay, so moving on, we're going to come back to dental health. When we talk about physical health, we often think about movement and the body, and we see a lot of the models on GQ magazine. We see the guys in the gym, etc. But there's a statement made that lifestyle factors such as exercise, sleep, and diet are important for physical health. So to Dr. Roberts, to Antonio, what are the major obstacles associated with physical health that you often see, and why is it important for people to get moving?
I guess I will go first. One of the major obstacles is something that you did mention. Persons do have a extra high expectation of what can be accomplished by their bodies. We have the persons who are using excuse me a second. Just give me 1 second, please. All right. Yeah. Persons have this extra high expectation that when they're going to the gym, they're going to see all these muscles bulging out. They're going to have all these great results because of social media. That is one of the obstacles that I do have with persons, getting them to actually understand what really happens when you go in the gym and when you start moving. One of the other obstacles I find with persons is that they have an issue with time. It's always, I don't have enough time to get in exercise. They don't understand that it takes 15 minutes or even 20 minutes just to start. And there are small things that you can do in between your normal activities throughout the day to get moving. While you're at work, I know that a lot of persons are at home and we are sitting in front of the computer screens a lot. A lot of persons do tend to just stay there for the entire day. All you have to do is just get up every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, stand up, stretch yourself out, walk a couple of minutes, walk back. It is not much there, but it is cumulative. It adds up. The other thing that I can tell you though, that I do have a problem, another obstacle, I should say, yes, with persons is that by the time they do decide to start moving, they're at a point where they do have problems or complications due to NCDs. So they have a harder climb uphill to get back to a good state of physical health. I can mention you asked the question about the importance of moving. So some of the importance of moving, I can give you some of the I give you three major factors or four major factors. Helps with the cardiovascular health, the respiratory system, and the musculoskeletal health, and the lymphatic system. So when we're talking about the cardiovascular health, we're talking about the heart, and we're talking about the strength of the heart, and we're talking about the respiratory system, we're talking about the lungs, the musculoskeletal system, we're talking about the muscles, tendons, ligaments that are connected to the skeletal system, to the skeleton, sorry. And the lymphatic system, this is something that I think that a lot of people don't know, and I guess it's not something that is widely taught, but the lymphatic system does not work without movement. And it is very important for your immune system. Okay. So it does move. The same way our cardiovascular system, we have our heart as a pump. It pumps the blood around the body and it takes all the nutrients that are necessary around the body, but the lymphatic system, it doesn't have a pump. So if you want to have that, so the pump effect basically is movement. Once the muscles start moving, once the joints start moving, it actually moves and takes toxins out of the body. That is what the lymphatic system does. It helps to move toxins out of the body. It goes through the process, and then it goes through the lymph nodes, and it gets filtered through the kidneys, and we release a lot of the toxins through our urine. So when you don't move, your lymphatic system suffers a lot, so your immune system suffers a lot. And then all the other systems I mentioned, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, and the musculoskeletal system do have their negative impacts from not moving. One other thing I would like to add before I let Dr. Roberts join in is that there was a study recently that said that actually moving can help with cancer. So say can help reduce the chances of cancer, just because of how the lymphatic system works. Okay, so I would move on to Dr. Roberts if there's anything else she would like to add.
Okay, what I would add is basically in the three pillars that Dr. Sutherland would have mentioned in terms of diet, exercise, and general health. One of the things I would say is that if we look at it in terms of the burden of disease in the Caribbean. So we're looking at the thing that's most common in our Caribbean region in terms of illness or where we're going to actually focus in terms of medical assistance or care or guidance. We're looking at things like diabetes and hypertension. And if we're going to make a plan, or anybody who has those illnesses is trying to make a plan for improvement, it must involve both diet and exercise. It doesn't, as Antonio was saying earlier, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to go and run a marathon, but it means that on a daily basis that you need to be cognizant of the areas in which you can improve. So if you're totally sedentary, then it means if you can walk 15 minutes, then you have improved. If you're already walking 15 minutes, then maybe you can walk 30 minutes. But the idea is that the idea is to move forward and to increase what you're doing from where you are at baseline. In terms of things like nutrition, the same thing applies. It's not a matter of having the perfect diet, but it's a matter of having an improvement over where you actually are at that particular time. So when people come to me and will ask me suggestions in terms of changing diet or changing what they're doing presently, it's basically just looking at, okay, well, if I can improve one thing, maybe instead of drinking sweet drinks or sodas, which are nice and common, you drink more water. So it's using fundamentally small changes to make an incremental improvement so that at the end of the day, at the end of a couple of weeks, you'll see improvement in that person's health, in how they feel, and then when you look at their parameters in terms of that particular, if they have chronic disease, how it has improved. So those are some examples from me in terms of just small changes you can make in those two areas.
Okay, so question coming back to you, Dr. Roberts, is it overwhelming to try to address both physical health in terms of exercise and body movement and nutrition at the same time? If I come to you as my doctor and you're saying, well, you need to change the way you eat, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she wants me to eat a full plate of greens, forget the carbs and the meat, and you want me to up my movement from 15 to 30 minutes. How difficult is it to wean both at the same time towards getting a healthier lifestyle?
I think people come to me overwhelmed, and then my point is to actually try and make sure that they understand it. It's not overwhelming, it's actually quite simple. So people will come with these radical things that they want to do and say things just like what you've said, in terms of, I want to take all of the fat and all of the carbs and all the ideas, all of the good stuff out of my diet so that I can be perfect. That doesn't exist. We're all humans. And the idea is looking at, in reality, where am I now? How am I starting? What do I actually eat? When do I actually eat? I'm making little changes. And once you make those little changes, so instead of saying I'm going to take out all of the carbs, let's look at the types of carbs you eat. So you can look and say, okay, well, you're having a lot of refined carbs. Instead of having refined carbs, let's have more complex carbs. The difference, an example when I'm looking at the difference between the two, a refined carb is, say you're going to have a soft drink, and a complex carb is, say you're going to have a sweet potato. Those are two different types of foods that would provide you with carbohydrates. But the soda is not going to give you any nutritional or much nutritional value other than sugar. Whereas a sweet potato gives you carbs, but will also give you vitamins, minerals, and all sorts of other good stuff along with it. The second part of the question was in terms of someone's coming to you talking about both diet and exercise. And the same principle applies. Someone will come to you at the beginning of their journey and expect that they're going to be able to go from sitting 90% of their day to being able to run 100 meters, just like what they see on TV. One of the counseling things that you have to do at the outset is let that person know, even if they were the best athlete in their teen years, that right now they're starting where they are. And if you make a change that's as small as increasing your activity by 15 minutes and increasing the intensity by a level up, that you're going to see improvement in a little bit. That little bit might be a few weeks, but you're definitely going to feel the improvement quite quickly in terms of how you're sleeping, in terms of your energy levels, in terms of your ability to concentrate. There are lots of benefits. So the importance in all of this is to make sure that you get across to your patient or get across to your client or get across to your colleague that small changes are effective. And if we can do small changes, they're cumulative. So after a while, although you may not start out being able to run that 50 meters, that if you keep at it, that those changes are going to be cumulative and you will get there.
Thank you. So Antonio, I want you to think about this question. I come to you as a strength and conditioning coach or an exercise clinician, and I say to you, I have a wedding in 6 months. You know, where I started out with Dr. Roberts, and she says, well, make small changes, but I have a wedding in 6 months. I am 5'6.5", 207 pounds, but that dress is size 10. Is that the majority of clients that you see, or is it that somebody's at the end of either you're going to get surgery or else you need to make changes? How are you first introduced to some of your clients, and what is the advice that you give to them?
Okay, well, in terms of, let's go with the introduction of the clients. I tend to counsel with my clients first. It is always a matter of understanding the individual. Just as there is a prescribed amount of medication for a patient when they go to the doctor, there is a prescribed amount of exercise for a person depending on the individual. As Dr. Roberts would have said, you have to start from where you are. So I always counsel with my clients to see exactly where they are, what they're capable of doing, and then we work on a program that can fit in their lifestyle. And why I say fit in their lifestyle is because you can't expect, or I can't expect, for someone to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work out, and they're not accustomed to doing that. And or they go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning because of work. You can't do that. That is not feasible for them, and it does not help for them in the long run. So we're always looking at the longevity of exercise for the person. This helps them to continue on the journey towards being a healthy person. Now, if I do have someone who comes to me and they say, look, I have to get into this dress, as you said, I will let them know the possibilities of you getting to that dress in 6 months might not be possible. Okay? It might not be possible. And I am always going to be truthful to my clients. The amount of pushing that you will have to do to your body, it becomes a negative over a longer period of time. So you might say, oh, it's only 6 months, but then when you reach the wedding, you get into the dress, your body is so exhausted, your mind is exhausted, you're mentally exhausted, and then what? You collapse. No, I don't believe in that sense of the rush to get to a certain body size. This is one of the reasons for myself why I do not necessarily take on clients who are looking to get fit for Carnival, get fit for Kaduma Day as it is in Barbados. That is not my thing. I am looking for, I should say, I try to teach persons that the best thing they can do for the longevity of their body, a healthy body, is moderate exercise and with cumulative, or should I say not cumulative, moderate exercise with small incremental adjustments to the intensity of their exercise as their body becomes stronger. That works better for the longevity of your body. You don't want to break it down in the process. This is why one of the reasons when we see the majority of professional athletes, if you take a good long hard look, we will see that the majority of professional athletes, they tend to retire around the age of 32, 33. They can't keep up anymore. It is almost impossible for them to keep up because your body deteriorates. And you don't want to push your body into that point where you are breaking down your body from pushing it for a small period of time. That is not good. That's not a good practice of health.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you about certain athletes that we see who are beyond their prime and still participating in sport, but perhaps we need to have
the genetic anomalies.
Yes, a discussion of those anomalies separately. So I'm just going to go to the chat. We have a few questions. Sister Amanda, this one is for you. How safe is it to see your dentist during COVID?
I think it's pretty safe because where I practiced in the health center, we had an autoclave and every instrument was properly sterilized. Between each patient, the chair is sanitized. We have special chemicals that we would wipe down. We used gloves, we used face masks, we used gowns. So once the dentist, well, I worked in the government service, so I really can't say how each private dentist operates, but that is the protocol. That's how they're supposed to operate. That's how we operate, right? So once that is being done, if you go to your dentist, check to see if he has on his mask, check to see if he has on his shield, his coat, something over his clothes. Was the chair wiped between patients? You're paying your money, so you can ask. So it is pretty safe.
Okay, another question for you. What is the solution, if you can give that advice, for receding gums and the sensitivity that it brings?
All right. Well, there is that toothpaste called Sensodyne that even I, in my old age, I found myself starting to need it. That is one of the things. However, if your gums have receded a lot, then you're going to find that not only will it be sensitive, but after a while, the tooth starts to shake. Because with the loss of the gum also comes the loss of the bone. So you would need to see a dentist, and the dentist, they can irrigate, and there are procedures now that they can try to rejuvenate the gum. It doesn't always work, depending on how severe the case is. But I have known people who have been to the dentist, and the gum, it will never come right back up to where it was supposed to be, but you do get a certain level of relief. So you can go to the dentist and you can try if it's that bad.
Okay, I'll ask you one more question before we take some of the questions for Dr. Roberts and Mr. Cheltenham. You mentioned that after mother gives the baby milk at night, she should ensure to brush the baby's teeth. The question is, what age are we talking about? Are we talking about, as early as a newborn, or?
As soon as the baby starts to get teeth. Once you see the teeth coming out, you get a nice soft baby toothbrush, and you don't have to have toothpaste to clean the teeth. It is the action of the toothbrush passing on the teeth that cleans the teeth. The toothpaste is to help the enamel to harden, but if it's a baby, you don't really need to worry about that as yet. You just need to remove the milk from off the teeth. Because once the milk stays there, the bacteria, it forms an acid, and the acid is what attacks the enamel and causes cavities. It is difficult. I have 2 children. I went through it. But when I studied the cost of orthodontics, braces, I knew I couldn't afford that. So it was better the baby got up and I brushed his teeth and he go back to sleep than for me to have to find how many thousands of dollars to pay an orthodontist. It wasn't easy, but I did it, so it's possible.
Good advice. So, Antonio, question for you. What is a sedentary lifestyle? And question for Dr. Roberts. what motivating tools can we use to get people involved in exercise?
Okay, wait a minute. Sorry, I pulled away from the video. All right. Sedentary lifestyle. Okay, so a sedentary lifestyle is someone, I give you an example of someone who sits a lot during the day or lies down a lot during the day, not doing or involving much physical activity. That is the basic explanation of someone having a sedentary lifestyle. So if you look at yourself and you're saying, I work 8 hours a day, or I work 10 hours a day in the office, I spend 9.5 hours in front of the computer. I get up half an hour, I go and I get my lunch, I come back, and sometimes I eat my lunch at the desk, and then I go home, I drive home, I get home, I feed the children, I feel exhausted, I feel like I've done everything a lot during the day. I haven't done anything during the day, a lot, so they say, in terms of physical activity. And then you go and you sit down, you sit in front of the TV, you sit at the table, wherever. That is based sedentary lifestyle. You are not moving within your day. You are just going through the movements. You're not moving throughout the day. So that is the best way for me to explain so persons can realize that they are living a sedentary lifestyle. They don't do anything throughout the day. They sit or they lie down for the majority of the day. And I can assure you, within the past couple of months, a lot of persons, including myself, have become quite sedentary. So that is my explanation of a sedentary person and sedentary lifestyle. Anything else you would like to ask? Or you wanted to ask another question, or that was going to Dr. Roberts?
No, that was going to Dr. Roberts, and I'm going to come back. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The second part of your question was basically motivating people both in a better diet and in an exercise program. I'm going to go back to your example of someone who comes to you and says, I want to get back into this size X dress. And the reason I'm going back there is that's somebody who's already motivating themselves, but motivating themselves from a point that is a little bit unrealistic most of the time. But the idea behind it is that you can use that motivation and just channel it in a different way. So that person who comes to you saying, yes, I want to get back into size X dress, that you, first of all, you're going to find out how long ago did you fit into that dress? And why is it important for you to fit into that dress? The idea behind finding out those details is not necessarily because you're keen on finding out the person's life, but you want to find out the motivators behind why they're seeking a better physique and try and change it so that not only are they seeking a better physique in terms of what they look like so they can fit into the dress, but you can tie it to improving health, improving quality of life. And if you can make those matches so that you can actually get the person motivated by something that they want to do, as well as tying it to not only are you going to look like X in a matter of time, longer than you may have wanted, but in a longer time, but you can also tie it to the fact that you're going to be able to, you're going to be able to actually, have more energy, participate in your life a little bit more, both socially and professionally. You'll be able to have a clearer mind. You can use those things to motivate anybody, both in terms of diet and exercise. Most people don't like talking about diet and don't want to change whatever they're doing. So the idea behind that, as I had mentioned before, is actually making small changes. So somebody may come to you and says, well, doc, I don't like vegetables. I don't want to eat those vegetables. They taste bad. And then you go into, for example, well, let's go looking at what your plate usually looks like, and let's just include some more colors. If you make a small change like that, where in the Caribbean, if you look at your plate most days, most people will see brown and white. That's basically what a lot of people in the Caribbean environment will see. If, however, you say, let's interject some colors on that plate, and you try to get more and more colors in there in ingenious ways, then really and truly, you still have preserved taste, and you've gotten your plate to look more pleasing. So therefore, you get more pleasure out of enjoying that meal, and it is more balanced. If you make those small changes in that way, where a person is going to accept those changes more willingly, and therefore be able to keep to those changes, then really and truly, you've got a motivated patient or motivated client, both in terms of diet and exercise. So you've gotten that person's goals, you've tied them to some health factors or health goals that you want to make sure are all intertwined. You've given them examples of how small change can be effective, and then you continue to reinforce that as your program with them continues.
So to both you and Antonio, Dr. Roberts, is it really that simple?
I didn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking you, is it really that simple? That was a fantastic presentation, but is it really that simple for people to just make incremental changes and achieve great nutrition, health, or move in the right direction, or move in the right direction in terms of physical movement and exercise?
I think what people find challenging is not so much the initial change, but persisting, keeping it up, making sure that from day to day, they are able to maintain the changes within their life, and forgiving themselves if they do have a day that doesn't go perfectly. A lot of the time we have what we would call cheat days, or days where, you know, things just don't go according to plan. And a lot of people, when they have those days, don't get up and go back to how things were before. They're like, well, okay, well, this didn't go right, so let me just go back to what I always do because I can't get this done. And that is an easy default, but that is, in reality, is not necessarily what you can do. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've had a horrible couple of days. The fact of the matter is you're doing this, you're making these changes because you love yourself, because you want to take care of yourself, because you want to improve your health. And if you do it from that position where you're actually looking at improving your own self, making sure that you're able to take care of yourself well, then you will forgive yourself for little discrepancies or little things that don't go perfectly. So that I say to my clients or my patients, you know, if you were talking to somebody else, if you weren't talking to yourself, but you were talking to somebody else and you were saying to them, you know, they come to you and say, I had a bad day. It didn't go according to plan. You'd probably say something to them like, no, don't worry. We all have bad days, but we can pick up and go again. Today's another day. So that if we can actually get our patients to be kind to themselves and make changes, you know, even if they're not perfect, then we will see at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, that you have positive results.
Yeah. I don't know where to add to that. That is exactly more than I could have said, really, but there's nothing much more that I can add to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's okay. So question for you. I'm going to jump to Sister Blackman, but Antonio, question for you when I come back to you. Is size a good indicator of good physical health? While Antonio ponders that question, Sister Blackman, can you tell us, she's cracking up at it. Can you tell us some of the common problems caused by poor dental health, and maybe perhaps 2 or 3 of the most serious problems that you've seen with poor dental health?
Well, the common problem is checkups. People don't go for a checkup. Adults, what I noticed over the years is the attitude is, you have a toothache, you see the tooth decaying, and you wait until it's so bad that filling is not a possibility, because then you have to do root canal, which is expensive. So they just come and take it out. Snacks for children. I know it's much easier to buy a pack of corn curls and give a child rather than with fruits. And I don't understand why, because when I go to the schools, I tell the children, I say, we live in a country where right through the year, we have different fruits coming into season. So you don't have to eat the same thing over and over. I advertise that they use local fruits. I don't promote the apples and the grapes and the whatnot because these things are not fresh. The orange that you can go and get on your tree, the vitamin C, the nutritional value is much better than the foreign fruit that is stale and it has been there for so long. One of the big problems is the mentality of the people, which we have tried to change over the years to is bad breath associated with not clean. I'm seeing a question at the bottom there. Somebody put a question, is bad breath associated with not cleaning your teeth? Yes, it is. And the cause of bad breath can be any number of things. Could be something you ate, stomach. If you have an empty stomach, the odors come up. If you have cavities, yeah, that's going to lead to bad breath.
Okay, so Antonio, I'm coming back to you. Can we ask everyone to mute their mics? I think we're getting feedback from somebody. Somebody's Antonio, I lift plump, but I could lift 245 pounds. Is my size, or I'm skinny, but you're not necessarily sure that I can run 100 meters without toppling over. Is my size a good indication of my physical health?
No. That's one word, no. We tend to relate, we tend to link the small frame to a physically healthy person, or a healthy person at that matter of fact. We tend to do that quite rapidly, which is not true. We can have someone who is, give me 1 second, please. Just give me 1 second.
All right. While Antonio is doing that, there are some questions there on the chat that I can address while Antonio is doing that. The first one basically is asking about the accuracy of BMI. BMI is not accurate, basically. BMI is used for research purposes, and it is used for population studies. It's not necessarily an accurate way of determining whether you are healthy or not. BMI is a measure of your size. So for example, if we use an athlete, so we take somebody who is doing rugby or something like that, we are not looking at whether that person is big because they are fat or big because they're muscular when you use a factor like BMI. So the other aspect of that question was basically because they have a hereditary disposition to be larger, whether or not exercise and diet can be a realistic thing in terms of getting them to maintain the correct BMI. My thing, therefore, would not be to say the correct BMI, but be looking at your body composition and be saying diet and exercise can improve where you are right now. It can decrease your risk of getting any of the diseases or actually improving your health and sleep and all of those other parameters. So basically, I would say to answer that question, you'd be using diet and exercise to improve where you are right now so that you feel better, you sleep better, and you decrease your risk of subsequent disease. Antonio's back, so I'll
Yeah, that's all right. Sorry about that. I had some feedback from audio in the house, so I just had to deal with that. I missed some of what was said just now.
Oh, Natalie was basically answering a question in the chat until you came back, which is, can exercise and diet realistically help someone to maintain the correct body mass index? But we're back to your size, and is it a good representation of physical health? What are the misconceptions about size and physical health, particularly the fact that we watch the nice skinny models on TV and we think, oh my gosh, they're super fit. And then you might look at someone who looks big boned and say, oh my goodness, they need to go on a diet. Why is that a misconception?
That is a very interesting phrase you just said, big boned. I would like to say that if you take someone and do an x-ray, two persons, one is 400 pounds, one is 150 pounds, the bone is going to be the same size. You don't really have a big bone person, okay? I think I caught on the tail end just now with Dr. Roberts. She was mentioning the have a higher predisposition of someone to carry more size. I think that'd be the best thing to say, or the correct phrase to say, someone who's predisposition to carry more size. Yeah, the physical fitness and physical health of someone is not dependent on their size, not at all. And particularly with persons who we see as the fitness models, we can have some of those fitness models. They're let's say, I don't want to say extremely skinny, but that is how they look. They look as though the clothes are barely hanging on to them. In effect, those persons are actually malnourished. They are malnourished. You go through and you listen or you read studies about how they treat their bodies. They're not looking at the aspect of eating correctly. They go through severe changes in their diet to maintain the size so they can continue working. And I say changes in their diet because whatever you eat is your diet. So I don't like the phrase of person say I going on a diet. So I just wanted to clarify that, so that whatever you eat is your diet. So you modify your diet. And then we can have someone who is quite girthy, for lack of better words, and they could be able to run 400 meters and not get winded. And then you can have someone who's my size who runs 200 meters and feel as though they're going to collapse. It is not a good indication of looking at someone and seeing and thinking one person is healthier than the next. That is a very large misconception that persons have. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media and the magazines and all of the different media that is pushed at us. All right. There was another question. There's something that I wanted to touch on briefly. The importance of physical activity throughout the different stages of life. I don't know if you were going to come to that, but I wanted to touch on that briefly. That was something that it was bothering me throughout these last year, I should say, during the whole COVID lockdown and everything. And I started to worry about, you worry about everyone and their physical health, but I started to worry about the younger ones, the toddlers, the ones that run about in the house and run all the place and keep all the noise. I started to worry about them because physical activity does help those small children in so many aspects on the mental health. It helps them with the socializing, and it helps them in their mobility challenges when they are young. Like running, they learn how to run, they learn the balance and all of these sort of things, and they don't have that now during the COVID lockdown. And that is something that it kept nagging at me that even though we are trying to keep everyone healthy, I don't want to jump ahead in the conversation, but even though we're trying to keep everyone healthy, that part really bothered me when it came to the children not having the ability to socialize and learn through play, because play is form of physical activity also. So that's something I was worrying about also. And then with the older persons, we have, as we get older, our bodies start to deteriorate. That is simple fact of life. For women, they tend to lose calcium faster, which means that you tend to see women with breakages faster, more breakages than men. And keeping a physical regime, physical activity regime at home or wherever helps to slow down bone loss, especially when you get up in those senior years. I don't want to say old, but when you get in those senior years, physical activity really helps to slow down that process of bone loss. It helps to slow down the osteoporosis, helps to relieve the pain of arthritis. Those are things that physical activity assists in, right? So a lot of persons are suffering negative effects from the COVID lockdowns. And I understand the reasons for it. And I totally understand that we must do this. But I would like persons to understand that they can exercise in their house. They can exercise in the yard. Just get moving. Okay. I don't know if there's anything that someone would like to add from there.
Okay. Thanks, Antonio. You know, you talked about modifying your diet. So, Dr. Roberts, I want to leave a question for you to ponder on. What is the significance of things like keto diets, etc.? I mean, again, a lot of this is to demystify what we're seeing pushed at us, as Antonio said, in social media and on television, etc., and how we can do the basics at home to ensure we maintain good nutrition, good dental health, good general physical health without going and spending a mob ton of money. You know, there is a time where we have to come to you as our family physician to ensure that, you know, we're healthy, we're doing the right things, etc. We come to you if we want to modify our diet. I love that Antonio corrected the phrase that what we eat is our diet. There are times we have to go to Antonio for rehabilitation. But when you talk about the modification of our diet, to what extent are things like the keto diets, etc., beneficial? And Sister Blackman, to you, we have a question. Is it true, and perhaps Natalie, you can add to this as well, is it true that too much fruit juice can be unhealthy and that it is better to eat the whole fruit? So I'm not sure who wants to go first.
Okay, I can start there. Let me answer the question about fruit juice. I would say to anybody, you can take fruit juice completely out of your diet as long as you're going to eat fruit. If you look at a box of juice is going to have additives in there as well as the whole fruit, and it is going to have much less fiber than the fruit. So unless there's a reason why you need extra sugar or extra additives in your diet, then having an orange is going to be a much better option than actually having a glass of orange juice. So that answers that one. So whole fruit, yes, is going to be much better than juice. In terms of the other part of your question, which was asking about modifications to your diet, correct? The idea behind this is basically the same as we were saying before, to start small. If we try to make too many drastic changes in our diet at one time, we tend to get overwhelmed. So now that everybody is at home, or the people who are in Barbados, for example, have experienced the lockdown that just finished, you will notice, for example, that sometimes once you're in the house, you tend to nibble here, nibble there, nibble all over the place. And a large percentage of the population may have had a challenge in terms of consuming too many calories in a day. For any of my clients who were having that challenge, I would have said to them, well, when you find yourself grazing or trying to graze in the fridge, get a large bottle or glass of water and try and replace it with something else. Because in effect, if you're not hungry, if this is not a meal time, then it may be boredom that is actually causing you to go to the fridge. So let us try and replace that with something else. So first of all, let's try replacing it with water. Let's try, chewing a piece of gum. There may be tactics that you can use, sugarless gum, by the way. And there may be tactics that you can use to help you deal with behaviors that you are finding are not profitable for you. So modifications, as I was mentioning before, when you look at a person's lifestyle, you look at what they're actually doing at the present time, you're not trying to make it drastic. So you would have mentioned something like the keto diet or other popular diets that are present in our society right now. They're very commercialized. They're benefiting, the people who've made them so that you would go and buy things. But if you look at the fundamental thing with popular diets or fad diets, as I call them with my students, is that usually what they're doing is they're taking a particular nutrient or taking a particular point in your diet. In the keto diet, it is protein and fat, and saying, okay, well, let's upregulate or let's use a lot of those things, and then let's not use very much carbs. And that this is going to be the miracle makeup, and we're all going to be fantastically healthy, and we're all going to look like models. That is unrealistic. And it is not something that is going to work for everybody, and it's not sustainable for the majority of the population. So when people come to me with diets or with fad diets in particular, there used to be the grapefruit diet. Have grapefruits throughout the entire day and you'll be skinny. In every generation, there's a different popular diet out there. And the thing about it is that they're for radical change and they're not sustainable. So it is going to be more important to make small, consistent changes than to actually do a drastic change, which may be effective in the short term. But if you were to check with the person a year and a half later, you might notice that they actually have put back on all their weight. They may have put back on their weight and more. They may not actually be feeling healthy, even if they have lost weight. So you have to look at quality of life along with the changes that are happening. So in terms of the different parts of your question, I think I had addressed them.
Okay, Sister Blackman, if you want to add to the question on fruit versus juice, feel free. If not, I have a question for you. Can you let us know if there's any value in using a tongue scraper? Question for you.
Yes. But if you don't have a tongue scraper, you can use your toothbrush. One of the things that contribute to bad breath is at the back of your tongue, the papilla. So when you brush it, remember I said, take the toothbrush and pass it on your tongue. So, but if you're using a tongue scraper, again, gentle. Some people would use a scraper and they rake it across the tongue, and that's going to cause problems. Everything you do in moderation. You're using a tongue scraper, there's nothing wrong with using a tongue scraper. You get it as far back as you can without gagging, and you gently clean your tongue. If you don't have a scraper, you can use your toothbrush. Remember, I advise a soft toothbrush. So the soft bristles will also get them between the papilla and clean your tongue. There's nothing here. Cleaning your tongue is an important part of brushing your teeth to help with odors.
Thank you. So, Antonio, are there challenges when people stop moving after living a lifestyle of movement over an extended period? So I guess this is the retired athletes. And again, we can tie it back to COVID, persons who were active, but because there was a limited time for exercise or for going to the beach between 6 and 9 and then 3 to 6, etc. Are there challenges when people stop moving after living a very physical lifestyle over an extended period?
I would say that you have to break that down a little bit, condense that a little bit more. There is something called as detraining. This is when someone stops activity, I should say, a little bit more than vigorous exercise or moderate exercise, and within the 2-week period of time, they start to lose the benefits that they've had from the anaerobic exercise. The aerobic exercise, my apologies, the aerobic exercise, which is exercise like running, walking, they start to lose the benefits of that after a 2-week period, tend to be around 2 weeks. Then the strength stays on with, we maintain our strength a little bit longer. So you will find that you might not exercise for a long period of time and you get winded faster from walking long periods of time or going up a flight of stairs. But if you go and you try to lift the same amount of weight that you were lifting a few months ago, you might be able to lift 80% of the weight or 90% of the weight. You get back your strength fairly fast. It kind of goes with the individual, especially with athletes. In terms of the athletes having negative effects, I would say that the more negative effects will come through mental health. They're accustomed to competing, they're accustomed to training to their maximum, and then telling them, stay put. That cuts their ability, that cuts their motivation. It cuts out their motivation completely. They can't train, they can't feel. A lot of athletes do like to feel the burn and like to feel that extreme push, and they can't feel that, and that really affects their mental health. In terms of long-term, anything long-term, there are not really any long-term negatives from not exercising after a long period of time, beyond the fact that you will regress to a point where the body is in homeostasis. It just wants to be comfortable. And then if you stay there for a long period of time and become sedentary, then you're going to have the real issues. So for persons who were exercising before or athletes who were competing before, in the short term, there are not going to be any negative impacts that I would say beyond the mental health aspect. But if you take that over a long period of time, then you start to creep into the area where we have a person who ends up being sedentary, and then the negative effects from having a sedentary lifestyle. I just saw a question here. Should I answer the question?
If overeating is reflective of ill emotional health?
Oh, that's not for me.
I actually want to deal with that, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there. So I would say most behaviors around eating, especially overeating or undereating, have a psychological tie to them. What I would say is that in the Caribbean environment, food is really tied to our social nature. You know, we socialize around food. We go out with our friends, we eat food. We go to a party afterwards, we eat food. We're very tied to food in all of our social endeavors. If you think, I call them feeders, but really and truly, whoever prepares meals, for example, in a Caribbean home, sometimes there's an attitude around food. If you don't eat what I cook, then there's a problem. You know, so that there's a lot of psychology around eating and around the socialization with food and the interaction with food. So what I would say is that definitely overeating can signify many different things. Some people will overeat in order to release happy hormones and thus feel better on a day that they're not feeling so great. Other people will overeat out of habit, so that they're used to eating 3 large meals on a day. And even if they've been sedentary, this is what they usually do, and they don't recognize this is more food than they would necessarily need on that day, given their activity level. So that sometimes there's habit involved. So that is an emotional tool, because that's an emotional tool. Let's leave it there. Sometimes it is a matter of I'm feeling low and I'm going to choose to eat food to release happy hormones, and I'm going to choose high fat foods. So high fat foods being your cheeses, your ice cream, your chocolates, those are the things that will release your happy hormones, and thus you will overeat. And it becomes a cycle. For some people, not only will they overeat to feel good, but then afterwards, they won't eat anything for the day. They'll go through a day, not eat breakfast, not eat lunch, and then they'll come home and relax. And because they want to relax, they'll use food to relax in that period, and will end up overeating in that way. So that what I would say is that it may not start off as emotional ill health, but overeating can be tied to emotional ill health, and it can progress. So it is something that you definitely have to talk about with your clients, patients, colleagues, if you notice that is a tendency that they will have. because you have to make sure that the person understands what is adequate for them and realize that skipping meals or having very large meals during a day is actually a habit that is going to cause harm in the long term.
Thank you. It's already 8:49, so we're going to ask 3 more questions that I think we need to touch on, and then ask you to give a closing statement. So, Sister Amanda, what are some of the causes of dry mouth? And outside of going to my dentist to actually treat it, are there any home remedies that you can advise us on? That's your question. Antonio, you spoke earlier about binge. Well, let me pose this question to Natalie, but following on what Antonio talked about with binge exercising, then, you know, in Caribbean culture, we have carnival and crop over. So people will exercise to look good in the carnival costume. They'll go fit, they'll go to work the next day and repeat. Right? And we see that happening during carnival and crop over time. Of course, none of us do those things because we're all goodly Christians on this call. But what's the importance of that related to rest? And for those of us who may not do crop over or carnival, but we work shift, what is the importance of rest and sleep when you talk about physical health? And for Antonio, how do we prevent spending the wealth that we've accumulated over time, improving our health in later years? So we've done nothing with our normal physical health, but now I'm older and I have to spend money on medication, etc. How do we prevent spending all the wealth we've worked so hard for back on our health now? So I'm going to start with Sister Blackman, then I'll go to Dr. Roberts, and then to you, Mr. Cheltenham.
But I'll be honest and say I'm not too versed in dry mouth, but what I remember my patients were always children who very, very seldom would have it. With age, some people, they might have some sort of illness. Like, I know my husband is diabetic, and sometimes he tells me he has dry mouth. Certain medications can cause that. And as far as home remedies, I can't recommend any particular home remedy. I use salt water for almost anything. Anytime I have a slight problem, I recommend salt water. So I don't know if that would help dry mouth. I don't know. But see your dentist if you're suffering from dry mouth, because dry mouth can lead to cavities. If you don't have saliva passing on your teeth, sufficient saliva passing on your teeth, eventually your teeth are going to start to decay. So that is a serious problem. And if you have that problem, visit your dentist. That's my best advice. See your dentist if you have a dry mouth problem. Don't leave it up to home remedies.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. We don't do carnival, but we work shift. And even for those of us who are on the call, we're not judging, who may still do carnival on the side. So they're exercising because they want to fit into the costume. Then they go into the fete. Then they coming home, grabbing a meal, not brushing their teeth, and heading straight to work, repeat for 2 weeks. How does that affect our sleep? And then how does that affect our physical health generally?
Okay. So we were all meant to sleep, and we were all meant to sleep for different periods of time as recuperation for our bodies to work well. As adults, I would say that between 8 and 9 hours sleep is what we need. Anybody who's working shift in particular is actually changing how their body is meant to work in a day. They're not getting the sleep rest cycle as would be expected. What happens when that is the case is that you're going to increase some of your stress hormones in your body. And your stress hormones in your body, like cortisol and some others, are actually going to increase the likelihood of you actually maintaining fat, maintaining central obesity, so that you're going to have a tendency to be unhealthier if that is the lifestyle that you have. Now, it's necessary for some of us to work shift. I had to work shift for a lot of years. But one of the things that helps when you have that lifestyle is basically making sure that you get in your exercise. Because exercise is actually going to reduce those cortisol levels. Exercise is going to make sure that when you actually do get sleep, that it's going to be good quality sleep. So that one of the things you have to be very wary of if you have a lifestyle where you're participating in carnival, where you're working more hours than you normally would and getting less sleep, or whether you're just, having a stressful bout of time and you're not able to sleep as you would like, is if you were to actually increase the amount of exercise that you do. So say you did no exercise, you do 15 minutes. Say you did 15 minutes and you increase it to half an hour. Then you would notice that the times that you do get sleep, you get better sleep. And that in itself will improve your health and improve how energized you do feel when you're awake.
Thank you. And to you, Antonio, how do we prevent spending a whole lot of money in our later years on our health by making simple changes or making any kind of change now? It doesn't matter what age we're at. What change can we do now to avoid having to spend money later on our physical health?
I would say pressing mute all the time. Sorry. I would suggest for persons to make small incremental, the same way Dr. Roberts was talking about small incremental changes in your diet. I would suggest the same with your physical activity. Make those small changes today. I'm sure we've all heard about it. Park your car further away from the supermarket door. You can climb the stairs instead of using the escalator. So those small things can help us to keep the little money that we worked so hard for in our hands later on in life. Start going for small walks. You don't even have to go for a walk all the way. You don't have to go by the stadium. You don't have to go and walk around the stadium 10 or 15 times. You can walk down your gap, walk right back up. That is a start. All you need to do is just start some kind of movement. And a lot of people do tend to think about running as what they should start off with. I would say start off with walking. Just because if you've not been active, your muscles might not be able to handle the impact of the running constantly, okay? So you have to be conscious and careful of those sort of things. Walking is an easy exercise on the joints and on the muscles, and it would help your cardiovascular system to get stronger and all the other systems to get moving. So just make small incremental changes in how much movement you do. And it's as simple as that, to tell the honest truth.
Just something to add to that, a motivator for those finance-oriented folks. If you're going to spend $15 on a prescription and $60 on a doctor's visit every month, that's $75 that you would have spent. Not that I'm trying to get myself out of a job, but if you actually do take that money and you actually take it towards buying better things at the supermarket, walking is free. So it's not as if you're spending it that way, but you're making better choices at the supermarket. You're making better choices in terms of getting the exercise that you need, taking the time that you would need, because time is money as well. What you would notice is that you've diverted money away from spending it on ill health, and you've actually targeted it to spending it on improving your present health. That does two things, because not only are you making sure that right now you're taking care of yourself and you're spending money that would have been spent on ill health on better health, what you're doing is over the long term, instead of going from spending $75 on your medicines and your care, when that progresses 10 years down the line and it turns into $300 a month, you have decreased it from, you're now going from say 0 to 75 instead of going from 75 to 300. So that if you think about it in terms of dollars and cents and progress, health will decline as we age. It is inevitable. It is just a matter of how fast that decline will be. And therefore, the burden or the money that you spend on it, you have to look at it over time, how much that will increase. And if you actually do the things to pointedly improve your health now, it means that you're going to have less burden, financial burden, spending less money as time goes on.
Thank you so much. Well, would you believe it? It is 9 o'clock. We've come to the
Yes,
end.
Sasha, if I may jump in just for 2 seconds.
Sure.
I am totally enjoying the panelists, everything that you guys are sharing. But what I was going to say earlier in my introduction, I think ties in with a lot with what has been said over time. And in my observation of people who too are getting into exercise and so forth, our focus is on trying to lose the weight, trying to maintain the weight. And for me, from a personal perspective, when I shift my focus from trying to lose the weight to maintaining a healthier lifestyle, I found that it became easier for me to be motivated to get up and do something, which, I mean, exercise is not my issue, but my greatest challenge was my eating, and Natalie would have heard me say this on more than one occasion. My greatest challenge was my eating, which is the biggest part of the issue. So from the time I shift my focus from thinking about losing weight to living a more healthy and productive lifestyle, then everything changed. And that was easier now, even with my background of having been an athlete, with that, making those small incremental changes in how I ate based on on my age, and trying things and taking out things out of what I eat and that kind of thing, making those little changes to the way I ate and to my exercise regimen, changing it up a bit and seeing what works more for me and what works better and what doesn't work, and not thinking it's a one size fit all. Those things started to work for me, and I started to see results in ways that I had not seen in my latter years after, retiring from being an athlete. So again, I thoroughly enjoyed this. And my other input would have been the importance of having a healthy life to be able to fulfill that call, or we all talk about having a calling, where most of us on the call, or lots of us here, are Christian, but we keep talking about, having to fulfill a call and having to do things that God has called us to do. How are you going to do it if you're not healthy enough to do it? God has called you to do something, and you can't do it because your body can't make the grade. So again, be a good steward of what God has entrusted into your care. And looking after your health is one of those things that we need to be a good steward of.
Reverend Cave, thank you so much. I think that adequately sums up what we've been speaking about tonight, right? Our bodies are the Lord's temple. So guys, I mean, we have come to the end of another very interesting, very informative program. I want to thank Nurse Blackman. I want to thank Mr. Cheltenham. I want to thank Dr. Roberts. Reverend Cave, thank you for joining in. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Neff, Pastor Griffith, Reverend Dr. Roger Samuel, and all of you joining us from Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, the United States of America, and to those of you watching on YouTube. Today we spoke about physical health, but I think it's easy to sum it up and say we're talking about self-care, treating yourself well, devotion, self-reflection, sleep, eating or nutrition, dental health, exercise, and how we balance all of these. So we're going to issue a challenge before we meet again in 2 weeks to reconcile mental health and physical health. Try drinking 2 liters of water a day for the next 2 weeks. You may not drink 2 liters on the first day. You might just drink 50 mils. That's okay. See if you can get all the way up to 2 liters in the next 2 weeks. See if it makes a difference. How about for those of you who want to look at your plate, 1 serving of fruit and 1 serving of vegetables per day, or 1 serving of fruit or 1 serving of vegetables per day. See how you feel in the next 2 weeks. Don't become obsessive about it. rest for 8 hours per night for the next 2 weeks if you can. You may only make 6. That's okay. But we want to issue a challenge to help you become healthier persons in your own lives. So thank you for joining us. We again issue an invitation to join us in 2 weeks, March 30th, when we speak about the mind-body relationship. How do we balance mental health and physical health? Goodbye. Thank you, everyone, and a special welcome or a special acknowledgement to Pastor Anthony Henry from our host ministry out of Trinidad and Tobago, Faith Tabernacle. This was another episode of Real Talk, Family Life, Building Shatterproof Families, one brick at a time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come here and share some of my knowledge with everyone. And I would like to add also, remember, physical health and fitness is a journey, okay? It's a journey, one step at a time, one day at a time. Don't forget that, and you will get there eventually. Just remember, it's a journey.
Bye.
Okay, we've stopped recording. So Antonio, Dr. Robert, Sister Blackman, if you're available again in the 2 weeks, Antonio, we'll start with those questions that were sent to you